Hello everybody, it is that time once again. I'm Joe, and we're doing a monthly Patreon Q&A. And technically a channel update, but there really isn't a lot to talk about in that realm. I can tell you that I will be at the Midwest Gaming Classic, and I will have a panel with Eric from Game vs. Game that is going to be at the Wisconsin Center in downtown Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That is happening the weekend of April, boy, I probably should have written this down, 14th and 15th. So Saturday the 14th, 4:30 p.m. Is the plan right now. That's not completely set in stone, but it will be a panel at the Midwest Gaming Classic. So check that out. Channel-wise, not a lot else to talk about except for I just had, oh geez, and his hair fell off. Just had Roger out. You can see he's shirtless, and you know what that means, I suspect. That means that the Roger was in the house doing some WrestleMania business. And yeah, pretty excited about that. I just got a new computer. I'm going to be editing that video with it. That's going to be the first video I edit. This one will probably be second. So you'll probably, if you're a Patreon especially, you will probably have seen, actually if you're anybody, you will probably have seen the 5 wrestling reasons to import a Super Famicom video by now. If you haven't, go check that out. And that's it. That's as far as channel business. We're going to get it all out of the way really fast this time and go right to your Q&A. All right, we have a couple of questions this month. We will start with Joel, one of my favorite question askers. And he starts with, since you have no plans to spotlight JRPGs, I was wondering what are some of your own personal favorites? Well, I had not played Chrono Trigger until another generous Patreon, who, you know, this is before I had a Patreon, but somebody else who is also a Patreon now sent me a copy of Chrono Trigger a while back, and Eric Allen and I played through it in a live stream that is on the channel. I'll put a thing over here, I think, and you can go watch that and find out how I liked it. But I would say now that it is one of my favorite JRPGs, if not my favorite JRPG, full stop, would be Chrono Trigger. You know, nostalgically, I really like Final Fantasy IV. It's probably my favorite Final Fantasy game. Other than that, I've really gotten off the JRPG bus, honestly. The last one that I played was Persona 3. And I liked it okay. I got about 15 hours into it though, and just sort of was like, okay, does anything else really happen, or is this just it? Like, go on dates, go to Kendo Club, and then go fight monsters at night. And everybody basically said like, yeah, that's pretty much the gameplay loop for the next like 80 hours. And I was like, okay, I think I had enough. So that wasn't a bad game. It just it's not for me. Those types of RPGs really just don't trip my trigger anymore. At this point, really stuff more like, you know, Deus Ex, Pyre the Masquerade Bloodlines, like stuff like that, Western developed, more action-oriented RPGs, I guess, are what trips my trigger when it comes to RPGs. So, he also asks, what are some games you simply adore? Sorry, what are some game features you simply adore? He gives the example as Mega Man X and Zelda starting off fragile and then becoming durable as part of the gameplay experience. I would say that for me, so like Jeremy Parish, I am a sucker for a grappling hook mechanic. I will say that. I haven't played Flint Hook from Tribute Games, but Bionic Commando, stuff like that, games with a bionic arm or grappling hook, I dig quite a bit. Stuff with a lot of gameplay variety, move variety. Stuff like, I just replayed God Hand, and there's a ton of customizable options for combat. Stuff like Super Double Dragon has a pretty deep combat system. Like, the big disappointment for me with Double Dragon Neon was that there are special moves that you can unlock with cassettes and stuff, but there's not a lot of basic moves. There's a punch combo and a kick combo and a basic throw. I don't know, other than that I can think of. If you can call it a gameplay feature, I would say games that let you take them on however you want to. So something like Metal Gear Solid 5 or Deus Ex, second time I'm bringing that up. Games that let the player sort of have a set of tools and just say, solve this problem. And that's something that I really like. I guess I'm going to be talking more about Double Dragon. He says, in a recent video about Double Dragon, you mentioned that you used to avoid handheld games and comparison videos. What changed your mind about this? That's a super easy question. I have the technology to cover them now without using an emulator. If you look at some of the first couple of Game Gear games I looked at, I used Kega, and you can tell because it creates an overlay. And even then, I also, when I was first starting out, I sort of didn't want to overload myself. So I would do games, 2 games at a time, typically. And I still do that sometimes, but that was the big sort of driving force, is that I just didn't want to overload myself. And as I become more comfortable and a better editor and better at producing videos, that's been part of it. But it's really, a lot of it's down to technology. I have thanks to a very generous donation from another Patreon, I have a PAL GameCube with a SCART cable, and you can get really good quality GBA and Game Boy Color footage from that. And I have, of course, now a Super NT, but even before that I had a Super Nintendo with SCART cable. And even though the sort of signal is a little noisy with that, it's with the FrameMeister you can upscale the Game Boy stuff and it looks really great. And I have a Game Gear with TV out, so there you go. And his last question for this month is, what's the game you've played the most amount of times? I think it's different when you're talking about games that are longer, but the answer is definitely Contra for the NES, which is my favorite game of all time. But because I can play through it, really, even if I haven't played it in a couple of years, I can reliably play through it without using any continues, and that only takes 20 minutes. So I mean, I would say that for sure. If you're talking about longer games, Resident Evil 4, or the original Resident Evil, or Resident Evil 2. One of those 3, if you're talking about long games that take longer than 20 minutes to beat, it would be one of those 3. Mega Man 2 would be in there. Contra, like pure number of times played through from start to finish, is absolutely Contra. If you're talking about things with more substance than that, they require a bit more of an investment, either Resident Evil 4, it's Resident Evil 4, it's gotta be. Maybe across all the versions of the original Resident Evil, that might edge it out a little bit, but I played through Resident Evil 4, I couldn't even hazard a guess. Probably 5 or 6 times on the GameCube, probably 3 times on the PS2, and probably 6 or 7 times on the Wii. So, yeah, Resident Evil 4. And we've got some questions from Tony. She asks, are you ever overwhelmed trying to decide what game to play? I have a relatively modest collection and sometimes I still get decision paralysis. Absolutely. Like if it's just an afternoon and I'm not working on a video and I'm just like, I'm gonna play a video game and I don't have anything brand new that I'm working my way through, this shelf can be a killer. And it's actually worse now because you know, I got this guy here and I got this guy here and this guy here. They make it worse. Usually it's just kind of whatever, sometimes it's hard, but usually it's like right now, we are going to be doing an on the stick game draft for the first time in a while. So I revisited some games for the system that we're covering. One of you picked the system that we're covering as Extra Life, incentive, so you know, but I don't think we've revealed it to anybody else, so I'm not going to say what system it is. I have been revisiting games for that system, so that governed that. I've been replaying the Mega Man series. I sort of inadvertently started last year working on the Mega Man Anniversary. I played 1 and 5, and then when they announced Mega Man 11, I just sort of was like, I'm just gonna do this whole thing. And so I played through 2 and 3 on the Genesis to unlock the Wily Tower mode in Wily Wars, which is fun. And then I played through 4 and 6, and I'm in the middle of 7 on the Super Nintendo. So yeah, but I mean, yeah, if it's just an afternoon and I have no reason to play anything, decision paralysis is absolutely a thing when it comes to picking a game to just kind of veg out and play, for sure. And she also asks, where would you move if you could relocate anywhere? Would you ever move back to Wisconsin? I would. I don't know that it would necessarily be my first choice, but once I moved away from there, sort of thinking that I probably wasn't going to move back, and that is still a possibility for sure. But I would like to, if I could move anywhere without restriction. If we're talking about the US, I would like to live in Arizona just because I find the climate to be very nice. So I would probably move to Arizona if I could choose. My better half absolutely does not like the climate in Arizona, so I don't think that's likely. If I could move anywhere in the world without restriction, I would. I haven't been a lot of places, but from everything that I've heard, I think I would like to live in Italy. My family is Sicilian. My mom's side of the family is Sicilian. I think I'd like to check out Palermo or check out Naples or even Rome and potentially move to one of those places, but I've never been to those places, so that's just sort of like what I know about it. I think I would like. I'd have to learn to speak Italian, but you know, so. But US, I would say at this, given, again, no restrictions, probably Arizona. I would definitely consider moving back to Wisconsin. And I like the Pacific Northwest a bit, so that there's always that chance too, but I like it here in DC too, so. And that's it. That's all your questions. If you would like to ask me a question for one of these videos, $3 per video on Patreon will get you the opportunity to ask me some questions. And again, if you haven't checked out the 5 wrestling reasons to import a Super Famicom, you should do that now. And by the end of the month, you can expect to see Joey Pink, baby, in same name, different game, Fire Pro Wrestling. Thanks for your support, and I'll talk to you again next month.